Welcome everybody, good morning, and it is really nice to have this first session under the Social Finance Vibe 2024. My name is Martina Grigorova. I'm CEO of the leading social finance provider in Bulgaria, Credit, and also council member of Microfinance Center. And I have also with me Brigitte Felay-Bruno, who I'm sure you know. She is head of unit for inclusive and social entrepreneurship within the DG Employment. And I'm sure that you know that this unit is promoting the social economy and social inclusive entrepreneurship and designing policies, which is really important, and financial instruments to steer non-public sector investments for social objectives. And we have also Jessamine Davis, who is policy colleague at Social Entrepreneurship Netzwerk Deutschland, or CENT. As a national membership body, the Social Entrepreneurship Network Deutschland represents, connects, and supports the growing community of social enterprises in Germany. Really nice. And it was established in 2017, and the idea is to give more visibility and to build important bridges to policies, civil society, and businesses. So we are really keen to learn from you, Jess, about your practical approach and to what you have learned so far. So let's start. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat. And I could address them to the speakers. The session will be organized in two parts. We will start with Brigitte and the overview of Social Economy Action Plan. We will have time for discussion and questions, and after that we are going to Jess. And again, we will have time for questions. So if you are brave enough, you could also raise your hand and we could give you the floor for your comments or questions. So we will start now with the first poll, please, to see how familiar the audience is with the Social Economy Action Plan that was launched by the European Commission in 2021. So please, we will have a couple of seconds to vote. Okay. A challenge also for Brigitte. We have 33% of people who haven't heard about this. So Brigitte, it's your really role here to explain more. Let's see, a couple of seconds more. I think that it's like 40-40. Yes, I'm really familiar. And yes, I have heard about it. And we have 25% that are hearing for the first time about this Social Economy Action Plan. So thank you for voting, for your participation. I think we could go directly to Brigitte to give us a brief overview of the Social Economy Action Plan. Why is it so important for the Commission? What is the strategy behind it? What is the expected impact on microfinance and the broad social economy sector? Okay, I will share the slide.
Thanks, Martina, and good morning to all first. Yeah, the poll is revealing. So it looks like we still have a bit of communication and awareness raising to do about the action plan itself. So on the slide that Martina just uploaded kindly, you see a bit the overview of what it means, this action plan we are talking about. And if you look at the left-hand side, you see it's basically made out of three components. One is already about developing the enabling framework. The second component is opening up opportunities for all actors. And the third one is about recognition and awareness raising, where obviously, as just mentioned, we still have a bit of work to do, not just for the action plan, but also the economy itself, about its potential to develop a sustainable, resilient, and inclusive economy. So the action plan itself, as you could see on the timeline at the bottom, was adopted in December 2021. So that's already almost 3 years ago. And the action plan itself, it encompasses about over 60 actions stemming from many directors general in the European Commission. So it's not just DG Employment working here. Obviously, the main other DG involved is DG Grow, working on enterprises and the single market. But we have many more. We have over 16 director general involved. And many of these actions now have been launched, if not carried out. And most precisely, there were 10 that were identified as really key and with a short deadline, so that we thought they were the most important stepping stones to get the plan going. And those have all been launched effectively. So, for example, looking on our side of DG Employment, we have adopted a council recommendation on social economy, and I will give you more details later on that. But we also launched the Youth Entrepreneurship Policy Academy, which is bringing together young entrepreneurs and network representatives, policymakers, and academics to discuss and define together over a period of 3 years what could be the effective policy we could put in place to support young entrepreneurs, including young social entrepreneurs. Another measure we have is we are working on the development of social impact measurement and management practices together with the OECD. And we have developed a network. We are supporting a network of European competence centers for social innovation. And on the side of our colleagues in DG Grow, they have launched a transition pathway for the proximity and social economy system to make sure it fully fits with the green and digital transition to have a fully thriving sector. So why are we doing all of this? It's because we really believe that political support is crucial to create the right conditions for social economy. And why do we talk about that on a seminar dedicated to microfinance? Is because microfinance institutions, we consider they are part of the social economy. By definition, they have a dedicated social mission, and they help really individuals who are from the most vulnerable groups and those who have difficulties accessing the usual traditional banking system. So in terms of target group, we are fully aligned. And at EU level, we actually already we have been supporting this microfinance sector for quite a while. Currently, it's with the InvestEU program. Before it was EASY. For the elders of us, before it was EPMF. And also we support EU level networks of microfinance providers. This is all very important because, coming back to the third pillar, visibility for the sector is very important. And we need visibility and recognition so that the sectors flourish. That's why we need to work all of us together with all public authorities and stakeholders to raise the profile. And in that respect, again, at EU level, we have recently reviewed our expert group on social economy. We just met for the first time again last week, and set the place where we gather all public authorities and stakeholders to discuss together policy steer and what kind of initiative we could put in place to support the sector. And also we have created the Social Economic Gateway, which is a one-stop shop on the internet to find all relevant information, hopefully on social economy. So all these activities I mentioned, you see them more on the right-hand side of the slide. And what next? So I'm going back to the bottom of the slide. Next year, we will take stock of implementation. It was foreseen from the start in the action plan. And to that end, we intend to launch a broad consultation of stakeholders. So please be ready. We would really like to hear your feedback on how it goes, and not just at EU level, but also on the ground. And on that basis, we'll publish a report by the end of next year to take stock and possibly adjust a bit the action plan, because the action plan runs until 2030. So it's our compass until then. But this midterm review is also meant to maybe readjust a bit where we see whether we have maybe more need for support, or things are going very well and maybe we can kind of close some actions. So that will be our way until 2030. And with the new commission starting, obviously it's important. There will be many new initiatives which we see are very relevant for social economy, or vice versa. Social economy could be very relevant for them. Just to name a few, the affordable housing plan, which will be happening, Union of Skills, anti-poverty strategy, Circular Economy Act. In all these areas, we really believe that social economy can contribute and help make a difference. And so it will be also our other work strands. So carry on with the implementation of the action plan and then make sure that social economy is mainstreamed into all our policies. So that's a bit the overview. Thanks.
So thank you very much, Brigitte. It's nice to hear that there are new initiatives coming, actually, and about these public consultations, right, next year, that you are encouraging social economy actors to participate. This is something really important for the sector. And it's really nice if you could share how we could participate in these public consultations and be part of forging the new strategy and so on.
Well, you will hear more from us next year, but probably at some stage when we have this portal at EU level, which is called EU Have Your Say, where all the public consultations are published. So we'll probably publish something here, but I mean, it's a bit early stages, but we also consider having more targeted consultations focused to maybe hear from those who don't necessarily go to the portal, but we need to still develop really our strategy here on communication and reaching out to the stakeholders. But you'll hear back from us next year.
Okay, we will wait for this, and I think that it's really important to take part. And it's good that the Commission actually is open for these negotiations and for these proposals. You mentioned also the expert group on social economy. I know that the networks that are including Microfinance Center is part of this working group, so it's good to have representation there. Great. And maybe we could launch also the second poll and see the second part of our discussion with you about the EU Council recommendations on developing social economic framework conditions. So please, I would ask the audience to say if it's engaged or it's aware about this initiative, about these recommendations.
Not a big success so far.
Yes, but it's good that we have you now and you could share what is this and how it's influencing our lives, maybe, or it's expected to influence the sector. Okay, thank you very much. We have the enormous 61% of people who haven't heard about this. So it's a really nice occasion to speak about this.
Yes.
Well, we understand that EU Council recommendations are representing specific actions that European Commission is expecting from the managing authorities of ESF+, right? So could you share with the audience what are the challenging part, what are the next steps, how many countries actually are taking part of this, how many strategic countries already have a strategy and or developing one. So if you could share a little bit, it will be great. Thank you.
Okay. So I hope that the one or two who heard about it was not just from me 5 minutes ago, but a bit more. Yeah, so this council recommendation was adopted almost 1 year ago. It was in November 2023. And it's for us a very important milestone because it's the first time we have a legal act at EU level, which really focuses on social economy. So its objective is to improve access to the labor market, social inclusion, sustainable economic and industrial development, and social and territorial cohesion by assisting member states in integrating into their policies social economy and creating support measures in a favorable environment. Maybe just to react a bit to your introduction, so it's not just for managing authorities. They are one of the stakeholders around the table who are interested in it because obviously it means access to funding, but it's really targeted first to the policymakers at national, but also regional and local level. It's really first about putting the policy framework in place and then making sure all the measures will be there to support and implement. So it's really a call on member states to align their relevant policies and legal frameworks to the need of social economy entities. And it's very broad and comprehensive in scope. So you will see that if you have a look, it's published in the official journal. Maybe it's a bit long to read, but it's really composed of several building blocks, which are, we think, the main components that are important to work on to have an enabling environment. Typically linked to employment policies, social impact measurement, public procurement, state aid, taxation, data and statistics. Data and statistics are linked again to the recognition and visibility. But state aid, taxation, public procurement, they keep being quoted by stakeholders as potential obstacles actually to have an enabling thriving social economy. With the question of how do you create a level playing field, because social economy entities they are mostly not for profit or reinvesting their profits in the case of business directly in the business. So they do have some handicaps that somehow we need to offset by this enabling framework. So as part of the comprehensive set of measures, access to finance is one of the other building blocks, which is very important and often quoted as being really problematic for those entities, including microfinance and micro enterprises. So the idea is to put in place a framework where you have easier access to financing, depending on your stage of development. So from really early stages to being more scaled up, and to leverage private financing as well, because it cannot be just about public money. And for that, including at EU level, we put in place some public guarantee schemes to encourage the microfinance institutions typically, but other social finance actors like ethical banks, so that they can go further in supporting the most vulnerable groups by de-risking their activities. We also really strongly encourage that they put in place business developments and readiness, investment readiness support measures, because it's very important. It's not just the money, but you need to accompany those micro entrepreneurs so that they can really thrive in their business. And as mentioned, indeed, we have EU funds which are there to be used and that can support, notably the European Social Fund Plus, which is the one you had in mind when you mentioned managing authorities. But also we have InvestEU, which is this program at EU level of financial instruments. And it even includes a member state compartment, which allows actually managing authorities to transfer money to InvestEU and trust it to the EIF mostly to run microfinance schemes or social enterprise finance schemes on their behalf, and with the funds being ring-fenced really for their area. So, I mean, in terms of, it's very encompassing in terms of all the building blocks to address the barriers which have been identified by the actors. And all this should lead the first stepping stone again will be a strategy, as you mentioned. So we invited member states to define within the 21st 4 months, so it means until November next year, either a new strategy for social economy or include social economy in one of the relevant strategies. For example, could be in relation to social innovation, we see sometimes, or entrepreneurship. So it doesn't have to be a dedicated one, but there should be one. And as part of it, we encourage member states to revise their policy framework, their legal framework. We'll come back to it. We see a number of member states now working on definition of social enterprises, which they don't have. And also think about their administrative and institutional setup. And across, I mean, one of the red threads we have is that everything should be done in consultation with stakeholders at national, regional, local level, and from the design to the implementation phase. What we do at EU level to do that is we accompany member states and we help them do their capacity building, typically, for example, through mutual learning workshops for public officials of national administrations, and sometimes we have regional ones coming as well. For example, we had one last series. There are a series of 3 workshops all the time. We had one last year on state aid support, how to make best use of it, what is already existing. Now, then we had one on how to develop a strategy. What are the building blocks of a good strategy? And how do you design it and make sure everything is in place for a proper implementation? Next one will be on taxation. And we are also offering, we have managed to mobilize the technical support instrument, which is another program that helps member states with their reforms and capacity building. And social economy is one of the multi-country projects under this call. The application deadline is tomorrow, by the way. And we know that a number of member states applied jointly under it. So we have good hopes that they will get support there as well. So, well, as you see, we're still a bit in the first phases, but we already do see a lot of movement and progress across some member states. So that's very nice. For example, since last year, and we will hear a bit soon, Germany is a country who has put in place the strategy, but we also have Ireland, Slovakia, Greece. They all have adopted strategies or action plans for social economy and social enterprises. Some countries are working on improving their legal frameworks. Cyprus, in December last year, approved the law amending the social enterprises law, and Czechia is working on one as well. And we know many other countries are working on either updating, revamping their strategies, or just putting it in place. And this notably we saw those who have applied to the technical support instruments, so that they will have this really also technical support to do it properly. It's very important because, I mean, it will help with the overdue recognition of this importance of social economy and social enterprises. And also because it's just the start. I mean, this strategy basically is the beginning, and the key phase is really the implementation and the supporting measures that will be put in place. So after the strategy, we will, of course, keep on implementing the implementation of the recommendation. And member states have been asked to report to the Commission in 2027, and then again in 2032. So we see, I mean, it's really about creating the ecosystem, supporting it, so it's not something that can happen overnight. But we have put in place this kind of a long process to be able to monitor and make sure that the momentum we have today, because it's not just we have a council recommendation, but there's also one a bit similar on the OECD side, slightly different geographical scope. ILO also issued recommendation, the UN is working on it, so there's really this momentum we want to build on and make sure that now we deliver on the ground. And for that, it's really key that all stakeholders are involved. So it's really also a call for all of you at all levels, national, regional, and local, to get involved with your policymakers and potentially your also funding authorities to make sure that the framework is put in place, that it fits the needs of the local, because social economy is really local also, it's bottom up. It cannot be the same across all member states and regions. And so that's why really the time for you now to step in and make sure it works well.
Wow, it's a lot. It's always like this. The Commission is doing a lot, and we as practitioners want to see like the specific details that are affecting our work. So thank you for this broad overview. I heard a lot of like keywords like access for finance for social enterprises and social entrepreneurship. It's key, right? Also, something very interesting that we are advocating about, that every single enterprise should have access to finance depending on the level of development, because some of them are big, some of them are small. So this is good that you are putting on place in your strategy. Also, of course, the business development support, the capacity building program, and what I'm sure that is coming as a question from the audience now. We heard that, and I then go to the question of Marco Traversi. But first one, I would like to ask, there is the big InvestEU program. So if the managing authorities of a specific country are not developing financial instruments or instruments in general for access to finance for social entrepreneurship, we could expect to have this from under InvestEU by the partners that are your European Investment Fund and also the Council of Europe Development Bank, right? So this would be the situation. And do you expect any new instruments in regards to this? Any new apart from the existing that are funding? We have also capacity building. Do you have any idea about the future?
Do you mean like the next multi-annual financial framework or the near future?
Yeah, what is next? Like, we are always curious about what funding is coming to the sector. So if you have any clue about new financial instruments, only even if they are in like development phase, it will be great.
Well, trying to answer your question, under InvestEU, you might be aware that so we have a 2.8 billion under the social investment and skills window. And I mean, across InvestEU, there was a rule that 75% would be managed by the EIB and the EIF, European Investment Fund. So for microfinance at the EIF, which is relevant, social enterprises and social impact financing as well. But then 25% by other implementing partners. So indeed, as you mentioned, the Council of Europe Bank is one of them. And we have also national promotional banks. Already under our window, we have the Caisse des Dépôts in France, the Cassa dei Depositi in Italy, for example, who have already signed up. And then we launch a second call for expression of interest in the spring. And we are currently negotiating agreements with a number of new promotional banks, which means that for a number of countries, I cannot say until it's signed, but we are really negotiation phase. So they have already been informed about the result of the evaluation. So we will have new instruments developed more at national level. So it might be closer for some of you and easier maybe than to go to the EIF. Even though the EIF and the CEB, obviously they work through also intermediaries, which are closer to you. And these are the faces you see, those intermediaries. So there's still development, deployment under InvestEU. And actually, we still have a bit of money left. So there will be another kind of date for a new call for expression of interest with still new partners coming in, or existing one topping up their products at some stage with what is left. Because the way, okay, I don't want to go into details, but InvestEU, as it was partly next generation EU money, we will have some more money getting available within 1 year or two. So there will still be a lot of deployment on the ground. And there it's complementary to what managing authorities can do under the ESF, notably, where there, as part of their programming, their regional or national priorities, notably if they want to support microfinance, social enterprise, financial instruments is a possible way to go. You know it well in Bulgaria. And we do have a few under this multi-annual framework, so 2021-27. Probably not enough, we could do more. And there is a midterm review of the ESF plus programs next year. So we hope maybe some member states will grab the opportunity if they see there are a lot of needs in their own country to create a tool, either themselves, they can do it themselves, or if they think it's too complicated. Well, first we have FICOMPASS, which is here to help. It's a technical assistance program we have under ESF, which is here to help. And if it's still too complicated or too cumbersome, then there is this idea of the member state compartment, which I flagged, and there they can just transfer the money and it will be ruled under InvestEU with the ready-made products which exist already to support microfinance or social enterprise. That's how far I can go. For the next MFF, you'll have to wait a bit.
Yeah, thank you for this. I think it was a little bit surprising for you, but it just popped up in my head when I have been listening to you. So it's good that also the development banks are actually more interested, because this is a good option for smaller MFIs to access funding through these guarantee schemes that you mentioned for the development banks. So I'm sure that if they want, they could provide funding to smaller MFIs or smaller social finance providers, which is great. And yeah, and it's good that it's interest from the development banks to become pillar assess and so on. Great. And let's go to the question of Marco, who is asking, how do you think the lack of a specific commissioner dedicated to social economy, as it used to be, will affect the EU policies in the field?
Okay, well, I tried to anticipate a bit that question in my last points. Well, yeah, it's true in the mission letters, you won't find social economy as such. This being said, as I also mentioned, first we have two things. First, we have the action plan, which was not the case previously. And this action plan runs until 2030. So anyway, we will keep on implementing it. And we don't intend to stop just because there's a new college starting. And now we have in place all the support measures we put, the council recommendation, we will keep on implementing. So first, I mean, the context is different from what it was like 5 years ago. And also, as I mentioned, even if social economy does not appear as such, we really see a lot of initiatives, including where DG employment will be chef de file, typically the anti-poverty strategy, for example, the union of skills, where social economy is very relevant. Also, how affordable housing, circular economy, but there are plenty more. We went through a bit the initiatives. If you read at the guidelines that our president, Mrs. van der Leyen, presented in Parliament in July, you have plenty where you see that maybe that's our next challenge, is to make sure that social economy, we are mainstream and not necessarily we don't need this, have this specific niche, because maybe that would be the overall achievement of finally being recognized that we are just mainstream.
Okay, nice. We are just mainstream, right? We don't need special attention. But how to compete to the big banks, to the big financial providers if we are mainstream? But in general, it's nice to hear that we could fit to all boxes, right? Or many boxes, not specific dedicated programs.
Yeah.
And you think that and you think that we are safe until 2030?
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct? We have the money until 2030, maybe, because the strategy is on place.
The action plan is until 2030. The money, as you know, it's per MFF, so it's until 2027. And then we'll have a new multi-annual financial framework in place, which will start from 28. So there we'll have programs. So I mean, I cannot commit to anything at this stage, but I mean, from one MFF to the other, you could see with this one, there is some restructuring, reorganization, tendency to have fewer programs, which is also something that President van der Leyen announced. But I mean, the support to microfinance and social enterprises, it moved from easy to InvestEU, but it's still there. So I don't see why a priori it should disappear suddenly. When I said mainstreaming, it's good because I mean you become one of the part of the economy, and it's important in terms of sustainable resilience. But it doesn't mean that we need to stop. We can't stop all support measures. I think in terms of mainstreaming, we are not there yet because there are some structural handicaps that we need to offset, and that's why we have the strategy and the council recommendation. So it's not just also at EU level. I mean, it's also at national level, regional level that you need to mobilize your policymakers to make sure that because the EU budget will never be able to fund it all. I mean, as the sector is growing as well, which is nice, yes. We need to have more sources. That's the idea we have. I mean, we're just like having more guarantees to de-risk so that we mobilize private funding, because public funding will not do it all for sure.
Yes. And my last question is, we could expect continuity between the programs, like not to be a gap in funding that always the sector is aware of, and it's the biggest problem. So we have 3 years, right, or 2.5 to work towards this. And yes, we are happy to cooperate as a sector with the Commission, and of course to communicate properly with the managing authorities, to the national promotional banks, and really to go together to have available funding for this sector that is growing. Well, thank you very much, Bridget. It was really nice discussion. Excuse me again if there were like questions that you wasn't prepared. I know that you are keen on being spontaneous, so thank you very much.
Thanks.
And please stay with us. We have like 25 more minutes, and if we have the time after the presentation of Jess, we will again open the discussion with the audience. So thank you, Bridget. And Jess, Germany, as we see, is one of the countries that is like a champion in adopting the strategy, also mentioned by Bridget. So currently is implementing the national social economy strategy, right? With so many actions on place, including one that is regarding financial instruments, which is really interesting to know more about this. And could you please share with us the main aspects of this strategy? To what extent it is addressing the needs of social economy actors?
Yes, we'd be really happy to. Hi, everybody. Really nice to be with you here today, and thanks for the invite. I will just quickly share my screen. My presentation is not as efficient as Bridget's, unfortunately. It's on lots of different pages, not just one. That was very impressive. Okay, full screen. Right, you can see it now, right? Wonderful. Yes, so I'm here today, as Martina said, to give a few insights into the German strategy for social innovation and companies for the common good is the full title. Just quickly to recap who SEND is. Martina, you introduced us very nicely at the beginning, but just quickly to go over that again. So we were founded in 2017, and we were actually at the time a group within the Startup Association in Germany. And then we recognized that social entrepreneurs needed their own voice in Germany. And these are the 4 areas that SEND works on. So networking the sector, offering coachings, creating visibility for the sector, and then the advocacy work. And the advocacy work is what I do. We currently have over 800 members, and here is just a very small overview of some of them. And they're working in very diverse areas. So there are market-based social entrepreneurs that are creating more sustainable products. And there are also non-market-based social enterprises that are providing services for customers that won't be able to pay for them, basically. So working in areas around education, maybe for underprivileged children, maybe in the refugee space. So yeah, so it's really a very diverse mix, as I'm sure many of you are familiar with from your own countries. So getting onto the strategy, what are some of the key facts? So the strategy in Germany was actually launched in September 2023. So it was prior to the council's recommendation. And the strategy was actually anchored in the current government's coalition contract from 2021. And the fact that that happened was actually a result of a lot of bottom-up action, as Bridget just highlighted, is so important for the sector. So SEND, along with a lot of other players from the social economy, advocated that the sector needed a strategy, and that's how it came to be anchored in 2021 and then launched in 2023. So it's been just over a year at the moment. And as you can see here, the government recently publicised that 72% of over 70 individual measures in the strategy have already been completed or are currently in progress. They haven't actually released specific details around this, so we haven't been able to check ourselves. They're going to be releasing this at the beginning of next year, apparently. But yeah, but you can definitely see that there is a lot of motivation in the German government, and it has definitely been very. You can tell that there's a lot of speed behind the measures that they're putting into place. Also important to highlight, the strategy was launched as in joint responsibility between the Economic Ministry and the Education and Innovation Ministry in Germany. So yeah, so completely joint responsibility. No one of them was in the lead, which is we think a really great example of ministries working together. And it wasn't just these 2 ministries involved. There were also further ministries, environmental industry, work ministry, that also have specific measures that they contributed to the strategy. I'm just going to go through a couple of the highlights, I think, from the strategy. There are obviously, as I said, over 70 measures in 11 different areas, so we can't go through all of them. But this is one of the big highlights. So the German government actually recently launched the biggest support program ever for the social economy in Germany, with a total budget of over 110 million over 5 years. And this is partly through ESF money, as it says on the slide. And this program is based around support and training offers for social economy actors, and that can be in anything, could be in management structures, digitalization, sustainability, and there's a big focus on creating networks and creating the environment, capacity building for cooperation to come into being amongst the actors. And there's a huge demand for this. The Economic Ministry actually recently said they have many more applications than they were expecting. So it really shows that there's a huge need within the community for such structures. Going in a little bit more detail into the financial instruments that are in the strategy. Sorry. So one of them is a pilot investment in an impact investment fund. And based on the results of this pilot investment, the government will then look into creating a specific instrument for the impact economy. A second measure is making bank loans available to non-profits. So this was actually a change to the law, which happened in about June this year, I think. And it meant that, financial, so a fund that actually comes from the Marshall Plan that was, dedicated to restructuring Europe after the war. It was in German law that this fund could only be used for for-profit companies, and there was actually a legal change made this June that means that this fund is now available to non-profits. So that was huge because it really represents a structural change in the way that Germany thinks about the economy or thinks about economic actors. And then the final measure I wanted to highlight is anchoring the support of non-exit orientated investment instruments. So the Economic Ministry actually supports investors in early stage investments and startups, but this support has to be exit based. And they're now introducing a program that means that investors that invest with more mezzanine instruments, so not looking for that exit, that they also receive the support that more classical investors receive. So this is again an example of structural change in the way the German government thinks about the economy. One final measure to end on, because this is also a focus project that we're working on at SEND at the moment, and this is the creation of a social impact investment fund. In this social impact investment fund, it would be based both on market-based social enterprises and also non-market-based social enterprises, which I mentioned at the beginning. That is the group that currently don't have adequate access to financial instruments. And this fund would also mobilize further capital from the private sector and also from the philanthropic sector. And this social impact investment fund should mainly be filled by mobilizing dormant bank accounts in Germany. And this is actually practice in all other G7 countries and many others, I think over half of OECD countries. And this is currently what we're looking to achieve in the remaining legislative period in Germany, so before next September, because this is also a topic that actually is anchored in the coalition contract in Germany, and it represents a huge potential for the sector that is currently not being utilized. It would also create transparency for citizens. So currently there's no transparency if you've lost a bank account, or if a relative of yours has died and you want to find out about the bank accounts that they owned. There's currently no transparency in Germany on how to do this. So in the first step would always be to create this transparency, to create to make it easier for citizens in Germany to re-access these accounts that may be dormant. Any that are not reclaimed should then be used or mobilized to supporting companies for the common good as currently an underutilized resource. That's it for the presentation. I'm very, very happy to receive your questions and talk a little bit more detail about the strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jess. I must say it's really impressive how many are these measures and how practical they sound to me, like making, for example, banking loans available for non-for-profit organizations, and the country to have the will to change the legislation to do this, which is absolutely great. I believe that behind this there is a guarantee scheme for the banks, right? Or do you have any clue about this?
So there are a few measures in the strategy where the government are looking into removing the personal liability factor for social entrepreneurs and looking into other options as to where that liability could come from. The specific opening that I talked about, so opening the bank loans for nonprofits, it relates directly to the KfW bank in Germany, so a specific bank that's affiliated with the government.
Yes, and you also mentioned impact investment funds. It's a government one, or it's like mixed structure? How is it functioning?
So they're currently looking into making this pilot investment now. So it has, the initiative has been started. Exactly what the design of the fund will be, we don't currently know, but it'll definitely be a mix of the government kind of giving the initiative, but then also opening it, of course, for private investment.
Great, really, really interesting. And you, as a practitioner, what do you think? What was good about this strategy that was launched? Are you happy with it? What is not so good? So give us some overview about this.
Yes, very happy to. I think, as quite often with advocacy work, both things are true at once, right? So we can celebrate how many good things were in the strategy, and also at the same time recognize that it was just the start, that it could have gone further in so many points. So I think what was positive about the strategy, it was created in a very participative process. Sorry. So the government a couple of years ago actually opened a consultation process with very, very, very specific questions that the whole sector was invited to answer. They got over 200 answers in total, and the specific questions were things like, what are the bureaucratic hurdles that mean that there aren't more companies founded for the common good? And then there was also a very open area where you could just bring in your own ideas. So I think that was a big plus point. The program I introduced that uses the ESF money was actually also created with a participative process. So the Economic Ministry actually released the draft of the program and then invited the sector to give feedback. And then they did end up changing certain aspects of it. So I think that's a very important point to measure to mention when you're speaking about strategies generally. I think the strategy was very holistic. As I said, there were 11 different areas with 70 measures in total, and there were obviously financial instruments, there was founding support, there was impact measurement, visibility. There was also a section linking the policy to the EU level. So it was holistic. There were, however, things that were missing. So a big thing that was missing is the new legal structure for steward ownership. That's been a big topic in Germany for quite a long time now, and it was also promised by the government, and unfortunately wasn't in the strategy. That is something that a lot of our community members are waiting for at the moment. And as well, I think there were certain social economy actors that didn't profit in the same way as others from the strategy. So I think market-based, smaller social enterprises were given great support through many of the financial programs that I mentioned as well. And I think the non-market-based, sometimes very large companies that provide services for free because they're providing social services, be that education or be that health support. I think these social enterprises didn't really experience that much support through the strategy, and that's a big area that we now need to work on.
Yeah, I could say that here in Bulgaria is something like that, because bigger non-for-profit organizations actually don't have such support, because it's it is supposed that they are already sustainable. They have the support. They have the scheme how to continue operations. And it's good that actually Bridget announced that this is something that the Commission is aware of, that at every stage social enterprises need support. So also for the smaller and for the bigger. Yes, and I'm curious because I haven't heard about microfinance initiatives in Germany. Are there something like that? Are there measures that are specifically supporting social entrepreneurship and micro entrepreneurship in specifically? Yes.
Yes. So there is a micro mezzanine fund in Germany, which is actually also ESF money. And there have been 2 iterations of this program, and the 3rd iteration is currently being planned and should be launched very soon. And this iteration of the micro mezzanine fund should also specifically address the social economy. So the goal is basically to increase the equity of very small startups and other social economy actors, and also specifically to give them the support they need to create a sustainable financial structure and support the jobs in their own organizations. So there's that. Microfinance isn't explicitly mentioned in the strategy, but the strategy does explicitly address the structural injustices in economic policy in Germany. So the fact that social economy actors are disadvantaged currently, even though they provide value to the whole society. And the strategy does also specifically recognize the contribution that the social economy makes to supporting marginalized groups and increasing participation amongst these groups. And there are a few other measures to mention that indirectly increase the inclusivity of certain measures. So the legal entity of the association, cooperative, so Genossenschaft in Germany, there was a lot of support measures introduced for that specific form of social enterprise, mainly based around digitalization, so making founding a cooperative more inclusive, and the managing of a cooperative also more inclusive. So I think there were a lot of measures that indirectly make access to financing more inclusive.
Great. It's really impressive, and I think that we need to closely observe what is happening in Germany actually, and how this strategy is developing, and use it as a model for other countries to promote different instruments for support of the social economy. So really impressive. Thank you, Jess. I would like to give 1 minute to Bridget, maybe because we are like 5 minutes before ending the session. If you have something to say, something to address here.
No, thanks a lot to Jessamine for the presentation. Really interesting and really good to see that. So first it means it can happen. We have a member state which is really moving already from the strategies to the implementation. As I said, it's really the key phase, and that's really a bit of the where we really see that the situation is improving, and it will take time, unfortunately. But it's good to see that the effort is there, including having to change some legal frameworks. That will be the case in a number of member states, putting in place the access to financing, because it's always key, and also developing other support measures. And I noted a bit like, try to make sure I popped up in both of your comments that it's really supporting all actors who need it, and maybe beware the temptation to focus maybe on just a narrow sector. Whereas to the social economy, it's very wide, it's very diverse, and we have very different types of actors. So thanks, very interesting presentation.
Absolutely. And we have actually one question from Brun Leon Beert. I'm sorry if it's not very good pronunciated, but in how far do you think this is for Jess, actually? In how far do you think the current choices of legal forms in Germany for social enterprises represent a barrier for access to finance? For example, for GmbH and EV that tend to limit access to market-based funding. Any measures planned, advocated in this regard?
Yes, so this injustice or this barrier is actually specifically the barrier that was addressed by some of the measures that I mentioned. So I think to answer this question, probably I think it's important to differentiate between non-profit. So basically you can have a social enterprise that has a legal structure for profit or non-profit, but both the for-profit and non-profit can both operate a market-orientated business model. And the social enterprises that operated their market-based business model but had chosen a non-profit entity to make sure that any profits weren't just sent straight to shareholders, but were reinvested in the mission of the company. These social enterprises, which are mentioned here in this question, didn't have the access that for-profit legal entities did. That is something that's been addressed by the legal change that I mentioned. So the fact that these bank loans from the KfW Bank in Germany are now available to these actors if they operate a market-based model, irrelevant as to what their legal entity is. This is also something that's being addressed with the micro mezzanine fund that I mentioned, and also something that's being addressed by the support system for non-exit orientated investments. So yeah, if you've chosen a non-profit legal structure in Germany, the barriers are now currently being torn down. A lot of the measures in the strategy were for that. That's something that we're also working on at Send to make sure that these barriers don't exist anywhere else. I think it's important to highlight that there are then also the non-profits that do not operate on a market-based structure, and these are the ones that we currently don't have very many support programs for, and these are often, by definition, not addressed by any policies in the economic area because they don't operate on these markets, but they do provide invaluable services, and the services that they provide actually relieve the pressure on government budgets. So they are a very important factor for the economy. They just don't operate on markets.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you very much. We have like 1 minute. Please don't forget the evaluation form. And I just want to announce something important, actually, that for the first time next week, we are going to organize, like as a sector, a policy forum in Vienna. And together with DG Employment, with the European Investment Bank Advisory Services Department, FI Compass, Erste Group, Impact Europe, Microfinance Center, European Microfinance Network, and FEBEA, we will join forces in getting together policymakers, getting together managing authorities, national promotional banks from the Central and Eastern Europe, and really initiate this dialogue in between all the stakeholders on one place. So we are really happy to be able to organize this, and I really hope the next edition to be available for more people to join. And again, cooperation is key here, and we as a sector, we are really available to the Commission to discuss and to go further with the strategy. Thank you very much, Bridget and Jess, and see you soon.
Thank you so much for the discussion. I'm going to put my email in the chat in case anyone has any questions that couldn't be addressed.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the invitation and the discussion. Bye.
Thank you very much.